Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Shields, and today's guest is a longtime friend, Neil Trickett, CEO of Practice Promotions. Thanks for coming on again, Neil. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Nathan. It's always a pleasure.
Like we were talking just before we started push record, it's been a couple of years since we last spoke, and a lot has changed, right?
A lot.
Right. But I'm glad to bring you back. I'm really excited. If people are interested in learning a little bit more about Neil's history, he is a prior PT owner that has transitioned into marketing with Practice Promotions, then do a wide range of things, especially digital marketing, newsletters, you name it, they cover the bases, websites. So today, especially with where Neil sits, there's a lot has changed with marketing compared to pre-COVID-19. So much. So I decided to bring you on because you have a real pulse on the industry. You work with hundreds of clinics across the country. You've seen how people have had to pivot and change firsthand, and what is working now compared to what was working back then. And I'm really excited to get your insight. So let's kind of get into it a little bit right off the bat. In that, what's it like for PT practices out there now?
Yeah. And as you mentioned, so much has changed here. And, we're working with over 900 PT clinics across the US and Canada. So it's been really interesting to have a pulse on what's happening in different states, in different parts of Canada, lockdowns, partial openings, all this kind of stuff that has been a challenge for many, many practice owners out there. And so it's really interesting to see what is working now for practices and how people have really evolved and changed their marketing in their practice. And what's really interesting is actually a lot of the things that we were doing before that we're really helping clinic owners to focus on, which is going more direct to the consumer. That has become more of the way of life now. Right. So we're seeing practices now across the board. They're definitely getting busier now. I think as vaccinations are becoming more used, things are starting to relax a little bit. People are starting to reach back in for services. We're seeing practices overall get busier, especially here in March. And some clients are actually at max capacity, with space restrictions, less staff, things like that. Or maybe they had done some layoffs last year. They kind of leaned down their staff. And so now they got this ramping back up, and they're busy, right? Which is a great thing. And by survey, we're really seeing that more physicians are referring into clinics now, which is great. More past patients are coming back in for care. So that's a really great thing that's working out now for practices. Things are just starting to get busier and busier.
Do you see, and I know you're pushing it, so it's not the case, but do you see some owners who were so reliant on physician referrals kind of leaning back towards that and pulling back their marketing away from other aspects? Because you wouldn't recommend that, but is that a tendency, whether it's because that's what they like to do or because they're going into a slower season or something like that?
That's interesting. I can't speak for practice owners that are not our clients, not working with us. The ones that are working with us, they've really seen going that route of going more direct to the consumer and working with their customer list, how valuable that has been.
Oh, good.
What's really fascinating is that quite a lot of our clients that we work with, our practice owners that we work with from last year, actually had their best year ever, which is shocking, right? To say this was like the worst business disaster that we've probably gone through in modern times. But what we saw was that there was the practices that were very heavy on physician referrals, maybe more than 60% of new patients that were coming in were from doctor referrals, and they were very busy and they were happy and they were kind of complacent. Those referrals dried up, right? And when that crisis happened, and if they didn't pivot fast enough to really go out into their online community, working with their past patients and customer lists, they've struggled, right? But the ones that really embraced, hey, we got to go more to the consumer. There's a lot of people in our community that need our help. And they focused on that online marketing aspect, and then also really leveraging their customer list. they actually had some of their best months ever. So
Yeah.
we've seen them continue on that trend and wanted to do even more and more. They realize that there's a lot of potential there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have seen in conversations with prospective clients that they are saying, hey, we're busy now. We don't really need to do anything because our physician referrals are ticking back up.
Oh
And they
no.
were kind of waiting, but
Oh,
they
don't do
don't
that.
realize like that's, you know, like it puts all your eggs in one basket, and that's not what you want
Yeah.
to do from a business perspective.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I had an interview just about 2 months ago where we talked about the 4 different buckets of marketing, right? There's your
Mm-hmm.
physician referrals, there's your current patients who could refer family and friends, there's past
Mm-hmm.
patients who could return and or refer family and friends, and then there's direct to consumer, there's community around you, right?
Yep.
And what COVID forced us to do was pull away from that main bucket, was for which was physician referrals. I would say, 90% of the owners out there were probably really focused on those physician referrals. That was their bread and butter, to the point where they weren't even looking at the other 3 buckets, unfortunately. And it forced them to look at the other buckets. And I even have a client who, through the pandemic, he survived because of Facebook ads. Like, all his referrals came from Facebook ads. And yeah, he grew during the course of the pandemic because of Facebook ads. And now that he's sprinkling back in physician referrals, if his Facebook ads wean for a week or two, then now he's getting some physician referrals that are coming back on. If owners can just leverage those things, if they can put appropriate money, time, energy into each bucket, they're really going to see the maximum capacity of their clinics.
Absolutely. And, physician marketing is an important aspect of your practice, but
Mm-hmm.
I think where many people fell into a trap was like they didn't work as hard on those other buckets, right? As you were mentioning there. And sometimes it's a little bit of a, it's a little bit outside of your comfort zone, right? For a lot of practice owners, it's comfortable,
Totally.
physicians, right? You know how to work physician
Mm-hmm.
relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that you need to get referrals from physicians, right? And even if in your direct access state, it's sort of pseudo direct access where you still need to get a physician
Yeah.
referral for an
Yeah.
insurance, contract or something like that.
Uh-huh.
It's still much better to have that person come in, let's say from finding you on Google,
Mm-hmm.
coming to the clinic. Hey, we could do a free screen for you. I think this is going on. Let me coordinate with your doctor. Let me have my front desk reach out and
Mm-hmm.
recommend this. You may have to go in for a visit, but guess what? You've already created that great experience for them, and they're more likely to actually go ahead with their care
Yeah.
at your clinic, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just purely waiting on the doctor.
Exactly. I did a Facebook live event in our Facebook group, Physical Therapy Owners Club Facebook group, with Vinod Somareddy.
Mm-hmm.
And he shared the successful actions he's had recently with Google Ads, and brought on
Yep.
his Google ad agency to the Google Live, or the Facebook Live event. And what came to my mind was kind of like how a new PT owner approaches maybe a billing meeting. Like, we don't know the first thing about billing, and we don't know how to hold them accountable, and we don't know what the metrics are. And and so you take an owner like that, and then similarly go into a Google ad meeting, Facebook ad, whatever agency is doing those
Mm-hmm.
ads for you. And it's the same questions. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at. What are the questions I should ask? How should I hold them accountable? What should I be looking for? Is this successful or not? Because they could tell you all kinds of numbers and throw stuff at you. If it doesn't really get to more new patients, then you're like, I'm not sure if I'm spending
Yeah.
my money correctly. So I like how what you said there is, yeah, they know they need to do it, but they don't quite know how, and to really assess the ROI.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I think one of the most important hats for a business owner, and let's just face it, when you open up your clinic, you're no longer a PT, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I always say that, right? And so sometimes people don't realize how much of an entrepreneur they should be, right? They get comfortable just treating patients. So I want to be, good. I might have a couple therapists working with me,
Mm-hmm.
but no, the minute you open that door, you're actually a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
You have to think that way, right? So for a business owner, especially a CEO, like one of your main functions is actually promotion and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're not actually doing it all, but you're making sure it's coordinating and happening, and you're getting ROI and all these kind of things. And as you get bigger, you might actually have a marketing director or even a marketing team that's
Mm-hmm.
helping you out in the clinic, and you need to have a good pulse with them. What's the rhythm going on here with your marketing? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're not owning that hat as a CEO, as an owner of your practice, that's when you get into trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really important aspect of being a business owner is to focus on what is your marketing strategy, what is your marketing actions.
And what are some of those tips that you could share? Like, what are some of the new normal marketing strategies? What does that look like? What should owners really be focused on?
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually put this strategy together called the Ultimate PT Marketing Funnel. We've been doing this for years, just based off of research. And again, what I was mentioning is that this is what was working well before COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you were starting to transition from that model of more reliant on physician referrals to more direct to consumer and working with your customers, you're going to be much more successful. So, in this strategy, the first layer, the first most important layer is really building a large online presence. You have to be discoverable online in your local community. So you need to be everywhere there. And that's, especially from a Google perspective, from local search, through Facebook, social media. And so one of the keys things there is to really make sure that you're focusing on search engine optimization. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that can be done there, and you can work with different groups to help you with that. But that just makes sure that your clinic is going to get in front of more people when they're doing searches for help.
Yeah, and you
Um,
want to have a nice, clean website. You want to have one that might not focus so much upon how amazing your clinic is, but what you provide the patients, right?
mhm.
It's not so much about you and the letters behind your name, but more about the patients.
Yeah.
That's what we learned from past marketing interviews we've done here on the podcast. But I also remember an interview I did with Angie McGilvery, and she's been really strong with her social media presence. And they're posting like 3 or 4 times a day, right? And they've got a video person that comes in a couple times a week and actually takes video and posts
Mhm.
all over Instagram and everything. But she quoted Gary Vaynerchuk. He said, if you're not on Facebook, you simply don't exist as a business nowadays. I mean,
Yeah.
and that works for certain demographics. And she
Right.
highlighted that certain, I mean, if you're talking anyone above 30, 35 years old, a lot of them are going
Mhm.
to be on Facebook. But guess what? A lot of the decision makers are on Facebook. If you want to have more in, connection with the younger crowd, then you're going to be on Instagram,
Yep.
possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We've definitely seen that. We have a variety. We work with all kinds of clinics, from pediatric to geriatric to like super sports athletes,
Mm-hmm.
recovery clinics. And you just got to know your audience. Where does your audience mostly reside?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for some of our clinics, we've got some phenomenal clinics that are amazing at really promoting themselves, and they do a
Mm-hmm.
ton of video work, and they're really all over Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and they're able to build that up. But I think one thing to realize is that there's no one media that is king over everything else, right? You have to realize that there's behaviors of patients when they are going to come to you. I mean, first off, you're mostly an unknown. People don't really know what you're going to do to help them.
Yeah.
I always say this: if you went to someone on the street and you said, "Hey, if you got a back problem, who are you going to go see?" Are they going to say PT? Most likely going to say chiropractic, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe their doctor or something like that.
Yeah.
So first off, you got to be able to get in front of them. And they're usually out there searching, not just for, physical therapy near me. Those are people who are really looking for that service. So you want to be in front of those people. But the majority of people are actually just searching for, hey, how can I help my back pain? Or
Mm-hmm.
I think I tore my knee, right? And then can you get found in those kind of searches?
Mm.
So that can get you in a much wider audience in front of people who are never even thinking of PT as the solution to that problem that they're
Mm-hmm.
having. But now you have that opportunity.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
that comes down to, I call it the SEO Trinity.
Mm.
And search SEO is search engine optimization.
Yeah.
And that just means you can get ranked higher, better in Google. There's also Bing and Yahoo still out there, so don't forget those. A lot of seniors are actually on Bing
Oh, really?
because Microsoft Edge and Explorer, that's the default browser.
Yeah. So
Right?
they don't know
Bing.
how to change it.
Yeah, right. So um, while Google's still the king of the hill,
That's
you
right.
can't forget Bing and all those guys over there.
Mm-hmm.
So with the SEO Trinity, what that really comes down to is to rank better and get your clinic more found. you need to work within your website, right? And the content and the copy in there that works with the different keywords, like physical therapy is a keyword, back pain is a keyword, sciatica is a keyword, all these kind of things. So that's the important part there is what's going on with your website. How optimized is that?
Okay.
The other part of that trinity is Google My Business. So you are a local business, and Google My Business is the key to getting your information out there. That's where Google reviews reside. That's where question and answers reside. Your hours in operation. You can actually do appointment requests through there.
Nice.
A lot of people miss the part of putting a lot of great photos in Google My Business. Think about when you look at a restaurant and you're looking on Google My Business, you look at the menu, you look at the food. Does the place look nice?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a great thing to use for Google My Business. Do you have the same thing happening with your clinic? Have you put a lot of great visuals in Google My Business to get people to go, oh, that looks really nice place. They look professional, hands-on with people. So that's really the second aspect. And then the third aspect is called listings. And so listings is really how your business information, address, phone number, what you specialize in, all these data points, how is that on hundreds of different directories? So when you go on Apple Maps, how does Apple Maps know your business information? When you go on Waze, how does it know your business information? How does your car navigation know your business information? All that comes from these online directories. And so basically, the more your business information is out there on the internet, on these different directories, Google actually crawls those and finds your information and then ranks you higher. So that kind of makes the third aspect of that SEO trinity.
Nice. And you find that a lot of clinics just aren't doing this.
It takes constant work. And I think
for those, sorry, just really quick, for those owners who say they have an SEO company that's doing this for them, when you look at that, are they covering all three bases?
Usually not. They might be just focusing on one aspect.
Oh, really? Okay.
And the thing to realize is that it's never done. It's a constant battle for the top, right?
Okay.
So you always have to be working on it. You always have to be tweaking and changing and optimizing things and looking at what's working, what's not working. So that's something, again, we're doing like constantly for our clients is just ongoing work there.
And case in point, on that Facebook Live event with Vinod, his agency showed that I think for a period of there in February, they made like 1,100 changes surrounding Vinod's website and Google Ads and to optimize them. And that's not just one time, that's like ongoing. They said they average like 900 changes a month on most for most companies, which kind of blew my mind. And it's like, wow, you really do. It's not like a tweak here and there once a week. It's ongoing, huh?
Yeah, there's really thousands and thousands of directories online. And it's really about getting those all kinds of information from your clinic on those different directories that link back to your website. And it just that helps build relevance for sure with the way Google looks at your business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so making sure that online presence is there, Google ads and Facebook ads, what are you seeing with those?
Yeah, so what I always recommend for folks is that what we see statistically is that the person that will take the most action, meaning they're going to call your clinic or they're going to fill out a request appointment form on your website, comes from an organic search, meaning that you rank naturally in what's called the 3-pack, which is that part right under the maps, and then also the top 10. And it comes down to the more spots that you can control on Google on page 1, the more authority people think you have, right? So if you see a business and it has 2 or 3 spots on Google, you think, hey, that must be the best one. Let me click on that, or let me call that one. So it's really critical that you get your SEO, your search engine optimization really cooking first, and then start to spend money on Google Ads, because then you can command even more of page 1 of Google with Google Ads. What's really interesting with Google Ads is that it actually drives those other behaviors. So we're all kind of, I know you probably realize this when you do it next time, but when you search for something and you see their ad pop up, you're not so likely to click on the ad. You're more likely to click on the organic underneath.
Yes.
I know I do that.
That's what I do. Scroll past the ads, find the first organic one.
Exactly.
Right.
So, if you see, Rise PT there on an ad, but you see Rise PT below it, organic, the tendencies you will click on the organic.
Okay.
So it is good to do Google ads because it actually drives better SEO behavior. People come into your website. So
that's cool.
Bottom line is make sure you get a good website going, make sure you get your SEO in place first, and then start to invest in Google ads.
Definitely. Well, so many people focused on that, moving to direct to consumer during the course of the pandemic. I think a lot of people had a lot of success going back to their past patient lists, which they probably hadn't cultivated much in the past, I'd assume. Those who are successful are, right? And that's why, WebPT came out with Reach and that kind of stuff. But they really focused on getting back to those patients that already know, like, and trust them, huh?
Right. Yeah, it's your lowest hanging fruit. And the most successful businesses in the world really cultivate their customer lists. You think of Starbucks, how many times you go back to Starbucks in a week, right? So think about with yourself, and it's been a really fascinating journey over these last 10 years of building a practice promotions and talking to thousands of practice owners. And I always ask, hey, what are you doing to market to your past patients? And they kind of giggle because they know they should be doing more. They're like, yeah, I know I should be doing more, but we do some emails. We do like an email newsletter, maybe a birthday card. That's typically the extent of it. But what they don't realize is that it actually costs you, 4 to 10 times more to get a new patient in the door than it does to get a returning patient.
Totally.
So your ROI is actually the cheapest thing you can do to get a returning patient. And they know you and they love you. And what most patients don't want to do is come back to PT. You're like, you only go back to PT if you really need to.
You don't want to go to PT if you don't have to, honestly.
Exactly. So you have to prod them, right?
Yeah, that's true.
When I was treating patients, it was, hey, Mrs. Jones, good to see you again. See, your knee pain has flared up. How long has that been going on? Oh, 6 months. Why didn't you come back in sooner? Oh, I thought it would go away, whatever the usual is with that.
Yeah.
But if you don't communicate frequently across many media channels to get in front of as many eyeballs as possible, then you can't capitalize on your list. But when you do, you can really build your practice up. And where I love to see clinics get to is 50% or more of their current caseload is returning patients or referred patients.
Definitely.
That's a condition of power.
And that was something that we frequently did, especially as we went into our quote unquote slow seasons. And we were actively working against that mindset and being reasonable with a slow season altogether. One of our successful actions was to call back past patients.
Yep.
For getting providers on the phone. Okay, if a patient canceled, you've got a free hour. Let's look back from patients that came in 6 months ago or discharged 6 months ago, give them a call, see how they're doing. Not only see how they're doing, how are their family and friends doing as well, because they could refer family and friends in as well. And surprisingly, a lot of patients would call back and they're like, you know what, I'm doing fine. I just appreciate you guys took the time to call me, and I hope you guys are doing well. And they leave notes like that. So it was really good so that to further build that relationship more than just a cold email. It was very personable, and that was a successful action of ours.
Oh, it's huge. We did that in our practice. What we did is we had our patient list of a few thousand plus people.
Oh yeah.
And every quarter we would call them. So we broke that down into, okay, we've got to get to a third of that list this month, break that down. We're going to have the techs reach out, and they got so many calls they need to do a day. Yeah. And it's like, hey, just checking in. How you doing? Are you doing your home exercise program? Do you need me to resend that to you? Whatever it may be. And how's your knee feeling? Oh, it's bothering me again. Hey, why don't I have your therapist connect with you on that?
Yeah, do a free consult on the phone.
Yeah,
or free consult for 15 minutes or something like that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So there's many ways to reconnect. So one of the things that I think you need to go into it is that I need to cultivate my customer list as best as I can. How can I develop raving fans that send their friends and family, want to come back, know that I'm the expert to turn to when something's happening? I'd rather have them call me like, hey, I think I might have tweaked my knee. Do you think I should come see you again? Absolutely. Let's check it out real quick. That's the kind of conversations you want to have. Now, to get in front of those people, you have to realize that people are across all kinds of media. So back in the old days, you used to be able to put a TV ad up because you get in front of about 30% of the people.
Yeah.
Today, you might get in front of, 2% of the people on that
Yeah.
channel,
Yeah.
right? So you need to definitely be leveraging email, email newsletter out, specialized, personalized emails going out. You need to be, on social media, engaging with that customer list, text messaging, phone call, callbacks programs, and direct mail really works really well in today's age. So
Still,
that way you can get oh gosh,
really?
even more so today than it was 10 years ago.
Really?
Because
That's interesting.
do you ever see that meme? And it's from like AOL, and it was back when you, hey, I've got an email. You get so excited that 20 years ago, I got an email, right?
That's
and then
right.
you're going through your mailbox. You're like, oh, I got all this junk mail. And then today it's like, hey, I got a letter. I'm so sick of my email inbox, right?
Kind of true.
So direct mail works actually much better today than it ever did.
Really?
And the bottom line is, with your customer list, you're just trying to get in front of as many people as you can. So if you just rely on emails, you might get in front of 30, 40, maybe 50% of your list consistently. So you're missing over half of the people that you're trying to reach.
Yeah.
So how can you reach more people? And you've got to be on different media to do that.
Yeah. And that, it seemed I talked about the 4 buckets and making sure you have time, money, and energy in all 4. It just takes so much more energy now for owners, especially if they're treating a lot. For them it was so much easier to just drop something off of the physician and just expect the referrals to come in, right? No, to stay afloat and survive in the way things are, current economies, and you name it, competition around you. If you're not doing it, well, the large corporate brands are, and the physician-owned PT practices are. So if you're going to stay above water, you need to focus on spreading yourself out across these different buckets and make sure you have the money and energy to do so.
Well, what we've seen, growing, and I always have a stat on this, but basically from up until say 2012, there was about 25% of physicians worked for a network, right?
Yeah.
A hospital network. That in 2018 skyrocketed to 45% of physicians that worked for networks.
Wow.
And I can't even imagine what that is now.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So here's the deal moving forward. It is a different ball game. And if you've been in PT for, as many years as I have, it's so different than when you first started.
For sure.
And you have to be in that mentality of a business owner today, right? And you cannot treat full time if you're beyond, just yourself in the clinic. If you have, additional therapists that are working for you, you have to have time in your day to be a business owner and function that way. And marketing, again, is one of those critical components that you need to be on every single week looking at. Because as you mentioned, acquisitions have skyrocketed. There's a lot of buying out of clinics. There's bigger groups coming into your area, or they will be coming into your area. Hospital networks are gobbling up places around them too. So there's a lot more challenges coming up, right? But there's also a lot more opportunities. And I think if you know what you need to do, and you can know that you need to learn about that a little bit more, you can take those opportunities and really, grow your business, whether your goal is to just be as profitable as you can with the clinic that you have, or if you have aspirations of additional locations. Knowing how to market is really going to help you get there.
Definitely. I like to say that your business's love language is quality time. And so your business needs quality time, and that's not like in between patients and after hours and on weekends. No, it needs quality, consistent blocks of your energy and time to be really successful and achieve the goals that you want to achieve. Otherwise, it's going to lead to your burnout and lack of fulfillment. But it kind of goes back to, and I'm sure you probably still stump a lot of owners when you say, okay, what's your budget for this? Is that like deer in the headlights? I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Web PT, actually, I really like their state of PT that they do every year. And because they survey quite a few thousand practices, right? So you get some really good information out that. It's always fascinating to me when they ask, what's your marketing budget, or what are you actually spending on marketing budget? And across the board, up until probably like a multi-million-dollar practice, right? Maybe a $5 million practice. I think the average was it was less than 1.5%
Of gross
of
revenue.
grossing of what you made that you spent out on marketing. The Small Business Association average across all industries is 11%.
Wow.
So, and then in healthcare, total healthcare, it's about 8%.
Okay.
So when you say, what's my budget going to be for this? You have to really look at what's my gross income? What are my goals, right? Where do I need to be in my clinic to really maximize the space? If I hired more therapists, could I maximize and be as profitable as it can be? You kind of work backwards from that. And then what is the number of patient visits I need to be doing? And then how many new patients do I need to generate on a weekly basis or monthly basis to make that all happen? Right. Then you say, what's my revenue going to be? Okay, I need to spend, if you've been spending 1% or 2%, try to go to 5%, right? See what happens, right? And if you're spending it right, if you have a good strategy, you're going to get tenfold on your money, right? So it's really fascinating that in PT we spent actually very, very little in terms of marketing compared to many other industries.
Yeah, and especially if you don't have the time, and also if you don't have the know-how, you're going to spend that money and not know how to track it. And so I'm sure you would recommend, if someone's going to have a marketing strategy or alter a marketing strategy or want to assess their current marketing strategy, they need to, number one, know what statistics they're tracking, right? And then see what that impact is when they spend extra dollars in different buckets, right?
Yeah. And sometimes you go into it thinking, gosh, this is going to be so complicated, right? And you can go down that rabbit hole if you want to. But the reality is you just need to be really tracking, okay, what's my general marketing expenditure here? What's my number of new patients? What's my number of returning patients coming in here? Let me look at when my marketing is arriving, doing things, and try to correlate that with your increase in new patients. And you can see what's working, what's not. So it doesn't have to be super complicated, right? You can certainly, as you grow, you will need to get more complex in your marketing statistics. But to start off with, or, if you've kind of been not putting a pedal to the metal with that, you don't have to go crazy with trying to analyze a whole bunch of stats.
What I've seen is owners get a little bit gun shy with Google ads, Facebook ads, because the expense is greater than what they're used to. Extraordinary is what they think. That's because they've spent, $100 to $200 for a doctor's lunch here and there, and that's about the extent of it. But now they're looking at spending $1,000, $2,000, sometimes $3,000 a month on digital ads. And talk us through that, because a lot of owners aren't seeing immediate results from that. The general idea is that that's going to take 2 to 3 months to really gain some traction.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it comes back to, again, this whole strategy. There's a lot of shiny objects out there. Hey, we'll do your Facebook ads and you'll be, getting guaranteed 30 new patients a month. That's for some. For most, what happens is, if you don't have a very good website, if you don't have good organic SEO, it comes back to people's behaviors. They might see you on Facebook, they might see the ad, be interested, but they're going to go check out your online reviews first. They're going to look at your website second, right? And then they're might call. Then they might fill out a form. They might see that ad again on Facebook and then do something with it. So first and foremost, before you go spending a boatload of money on Facebook ads or Google ads, you have to have other core things in place.
Okay.
Right. And that's the best place to start with your money is, what are you doing to your customer list? Right. That's the best place to start with your money.
That's true. What
is your SEO presence? What is your online brand presence? Can you make improvements there? Then you will start to see results from that.
That's true.
And then, great, I've got a good solid foundation. Let me tack on some of the more technical things like Google ads, like Facebook ads. Then those things will work even better than if you just went at it without really looking at those fundamental things in place.
I love that recommendation as a step-by-step program, because like you said, that is kind of the trend or the shiny object, is to jump in on Google ads and Facebook ads. But maybe whether you're struggling or whether you're feeling rather comfortable and just want to make more progress than you are right now, let's maximize what you're doing with current patients, past patients, and physician referrals, right?
Mhm.
And once you feel really comfortable that you've covered those bases, I mean, like you said, if you're getting 60, 70% are returning patients and friend and family referrals, um, and then the last few are physician referrals, that's great. That
Yeah.
maybe that's when you can start capitalizing on a Google ad or a
Yeah,
Facebook ad or something
absolutely.
like
I
that.
would say,
I see what you
look
mean.
at that customer list first, right? See what you're
Yeah.
doing there, right? Invest your time there first. And then current patients, what can you do and ask for referrals, free screening offers, workshops that might invite friends and family to them.
Yeah.
Online reviews, like, here's a statistic for you.
Huge.
89% of people consider a review that's 3 months or older irrelevant.
That's me.
Right. So if you haven't had a Google review in like 3 or 6 months, guess what? That's really hurting how people perceive you online.
Mm,
So the most important thing to be doing with your online reviews is not necessarily leaving it to an automated system to do. That's important to have as a backup, but you should be training your team internally, your therapist and your front desk, to be asking for online reviews, because that is the best time. It's all about
it's
timing.
true.
You want that person who's having an amazing transformation, their pain is almost gone, they're like so happy. That's the time to ask for a review. And
Mhm.
then you have the mechanisms for them to be able to leave that review. But ultimately it comes back to asking that patient, hey, what can you do before and what can you do now? And they're going to
Yeah.
leave this amazing transformational review that will convince others. So it's a simple action, but
Mhm.
often overlooked, and a great place to start in the clinic.
And well, I like that you said that it has to be recent as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people are just going to disregard those that are, especially a year old. I didn't know 3 months was too old, but
Yeah.
if you're looking at past reviews that aren't recent, you're like, maybe they were back in the day. Maybe they're not so good now.
Yeah.
That's my first
Just think
thought.
if you went to a restaurant and the last review was 6 or 9 months ago, you'd be like, are they still in business? Did something happen? Are they not
Yeah,
good anymore?
that's true.
Right.
Is the chef still there? I don't know.
Right.
Those are good questions to ask. So asking
Yeah.
that routinely, and I love that you share those things because those are all they so much bang for your buck. I mean, you get
Yeah.
so much
They're
return.
cheap.
There's
Yeah.
nothing. I mean, to make a phone call costs the time,
Right.
right? Whereas, yeah, the Google ad spend, the Facebook ad spend is going to be money out of your pocket.
Yeah.
So why don't you maximize what's cheapest first? And
Mhm.
once you know that you've maximized that, then move on.
Yeah, our most successful clients are the ones that have a good pulse on their marketing internally, because
Mm,
they will be taking a lot of video, a lot of pictures. They're asking for those reviews. They really know that they need to market to their past patients. And then we're coming in with the technical aspects. So we know
yeah.
how to craft the website, the SEO, the digital marketing,
Okay.
the newsletters, the digital newsletters, email campaigns, like all that to support that. But
For
then we
sure.
can work really closely with them and get the
Mhm.
absolute best results, because you have to really customize it to your brand, right?
Yeah.
What was your clinic all about? What are you portraying out there?
Yeah. It's almost like plugging a few holes in your bucket before you start adding more water into it, right?
Yeah. The
Let's
worst thing
let's
that we get is sometimes is a practice that comes on board and it's like, hey, I'm paying you, you guys do everything. And
uh,
that is really like the wrong mentality. It's like, how can you leverage consultants and professionals around you to enhance what you're doing,
yeah.
right? And that's a better mentality to have.
Yeah, definitely. Do you see that this as you're, ticking off the items, going to your current and past patient list, and doing Google reviews, and doing better SEO on your websites and directing consumers? I mean, that's just what people are doing now to be successful, and it's just going to get more and more so going forward, I assume.
That is only going to it's going to accelerate more and more
Yeah.
as we go forward into the future, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And those
And
people
people
who,
expect it now. So if
that's
you're
true.
not everywhere online, if you're not super active in social media, if you're not pumping out, tons of video and pictures, then they're going to look at the practice that is.
That's true. Because even if the doctor says, I want you to go to so and so physical therapy practice, what's the first thing you're going to do when you sit in the car?
Hmm.
You're gonna look them up. You're going to see what their
Absolutely.
website
Yeah.
looks like. You're going to see what
And
their presence is like.
let's face it. Also, uh, the practice today really in physicians is hey, I want you to go to PT. Here's a list.
That's true.
You do your own research on who you want to choose. Yeah, there's doctors that say you have to go to my clinic, and we know that. But for the ones that do refer out, they are giving them a list because they don't want to just be like, I do recommend this place. They get amazing results, but I have to give you this list.
That's true.
So the patient's going to do their due diligence.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Anything else you want to share? You shared a ton already. I really love what you talked about so far, and really showing up what's happening within your own practices, and then moving on to the digital space. But what more can you add today?
Oh man, you're just like extracting everything you can.
I don't want to say you're done and you just say, wait, I want one more thing to say.
No, I think we covered so much here. My purpose is to help practices succeed in improving more people's lives. That's what we're about at Practice Promotions. So, I've always looked at it from, we have, great advocates there at the APTA level, the kind of government level, right? But it really comes down to, as individual practices, if we work better to educate the public in how we can help them solve musculoskeletal neurological problems, and empower each one of those clinics to be more successful at reaching the community, that's going to raise the ship, right?
That's true.
So that's a huge focus for us. So I would just come back again. The thing that we try to really portray to our clients and help practice owners understand is that, you can definitely be in charge of your marketing. You can be empowered in your marketing, learn more about marketing. It's really a critical hat as a practice owner. And you really have to look when you're working with different consultants out there, are they going to help you build the right strategy? Do they have the right systems, processes to help you get there? And then do they have the specialists that are going to be able to advise you and help you get the results that you need? And that's really a critical focus for us.
That's great. Well, it's cool that you systematize things so well, and you're not just some guy working on his own. Yeah, let's try this, that, and the other thing and see what works for you guys. But you coming from a physical therapy background yourself, knowing the speak, knowing and talk to hundreds of thousands of owners over the years, really know what can work best for physical therapists.
Yeah. It's been a really fun journey for me, being a PT, working in lots of different types of facilities, an outpatient. I had a real passion for manual therapy. I went to for a while to the Canadian College of Osteopathy. That was, a passion of mine there. I taught CEUs and did some teaching at university and things for PTAs, and then got into my practicing, right, and learning how to then be a business owner, right? So lots of training around that, getting better and better practice, and then going through the process of selling the clinic. That was quite an experience. And then starting in the Practice Promotions 10 years ago, it was just my wife Amy and I, and then now we've been able to build that up to 75 employees, and learning about being a business leader at that level, always to continue to grow, and marketing at this level, marketing Practice Promotions to clients. Again, learning a lot as we do that too. So you can never stop learning. That's a really important part of your skill set as being a practice owner.
Well, it's cool to hear your story and where you come from, but it's equally cool to see how you, over the past 10 years, have changed your marketing company. And you guys have gone into the digital space so much. You've had to learn so much yourself to be in charge of that, but to hire on people that are even smarter than you to do some of those things, of course. And so it's not just a newsletter here or there anymore, man. It's a lot more than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You guys have it all.
Yeah, like 5 years ago, we started off in just print.
Yeah.
Doing direct mail and newsletters, things like that. Now we actually send out over 5 million newsletters for practices a year.
Gosh. Wow.
So we're having a big impact there in their communities. But yeah, about 5 years ago, we started to do websites, right? And we wanted to do them a particular way. And we've always been, the one thing that's always been a guiding light for us is focusing on the results.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just putting something together that looks fancy. It's actually we're always looking at what's converting better. And now we have lots of great data to look through and continue to focus and improve with that. And then the digital marketing that helps you, again, rank better in Google.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Google Ads and all these kind of things that ultimately comes back to a full, all-in-one marketing solution for clinics.
Got it. Cool, man. Well, if people wanted to reach you, Neil, how would they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just we've got tons of resources and free information for you, video training. Just go to practicepromotions.net.
Hmm.
You can learn a lot there, tips and strategies to help your practice. And then you can also get in touch with us there too. Scheduling a consult's a great way to
Oh,
get
cool.
introduced to our strategy and our systems and
Hmm.
talk about our specialists. And we have different plans to help all kinds of clinics. We help everybody from small startup clinics all the way through 80+ location clinics. So
Gotcha. So if they have some questions, then they need to schedule a
absolutely, yeah.
consult,
Just get right on a consult call with one of our specialists,
and
and
that's at
we'll help you out
practicepromotions.net.
with there. Yeah,
Cool, man. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
yeah. It's great to be on, Nathan. A pleasure as always.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.